Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
So, hi and welcome to another episode of Buying and Beyond, Season 4. We talked last week, actually, about New Year's resolutions.
We did. And how are you getting on with those?
Back to me.
Yes.
When
I do that.
Answer a question with a question. Good. No, disastrous. I can't believe you just threw that back to me. You're the one that loves the spontaneous question. What are my New Year's resolutions? So, New Year's resolutions are, I think now this is going to sound really, really lame, but be more present. Mm-hmm. I just feel like 2024 was just an absolute whirlwind. Yeah. It was like, suddenly it was like, oh my God, it's a Wednesday again. Oh my God, hasn't the next Wednesday again? Like, weeks were just flying. Obviously, I live my weeks Wednesday to Wednesday, because our bodies come out. But it was just absolutely flying, and I just don't feel like I was really sort of in the moment and just appreciating everything. And this has been an absolute journey that we're going on, there is a lot to do, and it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. But I want to take a moment and just appreciate it. Yeah. So I think that's it. Sort of like just be a lot more present and. Yeah, be there a bit more for my little boys and
see where this takes us as well.
Yeah, really excited.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Winter season, can't blame you.
I need my ninja shot.
You do need your... I thought you said your ninja shot.
I need my ninja shot, my ninja ginger shot.
Your ninja ginger shot. But yeah, be more present and definitely excited to see where this business takes us and set some great business goals. Yeah,
and we've got some really exciting projects in the pipeline for the business as well. So really excited to get those executed this year.
It's nice to start the year afresh. In January, I always see it as your school year, September, and then your January, your new year. You've got two times a year. I mean, obviously you can reinvent yourself anytime, but it just feels okay, fresh start. What can we do? How are we going to challenge this year? Mm-hmm. What are we going to achieve? Put in some sort of goals, milestones, things you want to do. And I feel like things should come to fruition. Yeah, so what are yours?
I like the present one as well. I think that's really important because I feel last year there was a lot of sort of endings for me, I think, ending in my previous role, starting this business, and just sort of wrapping up that last chapter really, and now I feel like I'm starting a new one and I'm really excited about it, and just sort of writing down what I want to achieve, but also I feel like everybody writes down what they want to achieve and what they want to do, and then they sort of kick themselves if they haven't done it and achieved it. So I kind of want to just be really mindful that they're not pressurized goals, they're just goals that are to work towards, and there's not really a time limit on them, because as we experienced last year, it's such a whirlwind year. You don't know what's going to be thrown at you. You don't know what curveball's going to come in a way. And you just don't want to be displaced and feel negative that you haven't achieved something. I think you always need to just reflect on what you have actually achieved in the journey towards that goal. So I'm being a bit woolly here. But I think that I just want to feel happy, present, and, and just help people.
Anyway, with that, thinking about New Year's resolutions, our future of the year, we've been talking for a little while now, and it feels like the right time to kind of talk about it on the pod, but about the future of fashion. Yeah. And I think we've touched on it a few times about a couple of different things, but we've been sort of saying that, where is this going? We've really felt like it's been quite turbulent. there's been a lot of things thrown against retail. I mean, the budget just at the end of last year threw things all out, didn't it? I think there's at least 80 CEOs who've like signed a paper that the BRC have pulled together, sort of just explaining to government, like, while they fully support all of the things that are being put in place to kind of drive the economy forwards, putting the burden onto retail isn't the right way to go, because retail at the moment contributes a huge amount to the economy. Don't strangle it.
It's already struggling.
It's already struggling, but it's also a bit like it's going to drive it. It's still working. It's almost like someone that's doing really. I don't know if the analogy works now, because as you've said, it's struggling. But it's almost like if someone's doing really, really well in their job or at school, you give them more to do.
Yeah.
And more responsibility.
And I think that's probably quite similar to buying as well. You know, your category's performing, you're doing really well. Well, here's another one.
Exactly. And I was thinking about, you know, at the first retailer we were at, you know, the jewel inside the crown. It was the sort of the smaller business. But the other one wasn't doing so well, and it was keeping everything afloat, so you had to do harder, and it was putting more and more pressure on it to do better, which stifled it. And that's kind of what it feels like in a way. Like it's a really big part of it, but it can't take all the pressure. But we've been talking a lot about what the future of retail is. We've obviously seen more sad news over the past year. At the beginning of the year, there was Body Shop. And
then most recently, Homebase have obviously had some really bad news and announcements.
Pre-Christmas.
And that is the absolute worst time, isn't it? And Asda as well. Really feel for all those people that are going through that at the moment.
Well, and I thought
it was quite nice on LinkedIn. I mean, nice is probably not the right word, but a lot of people were sort of rallying together to help everybody that was feeling like
definitely they're reaching out for them. But I hadn't realised, you told me that Asda didn't go through a consultation period. I found that extremely shocking.
That's a news article I read. So allegedly they sort of plummeted them straight into redundancy without a consultation period, which is quite brutal. I must, obviously we don't know what's going on there, but that is
because that's the thing.
Quite desperate in some ways.
Consultation periods aren't easy. I've never been through a consultation period, but I know many people that have. And on the one hand, it strings it out because it can go on for quite a long time, and at least you've got the rug under your feet. But there's the uncertainty of that rug could be pulled at any time, and you just don't know when that's going to happen.
But you at least feel like it's been done fairly.
But it's done fairly, yeah.
Rather than sort of surprise, like all along, all this sort of last year you've been being watched or whatever. But yeah, I mean, again, like I said, we don't know what's going on in that company, and obviously they are at a point where they've got to make some real shock decisions, and they've obviously done it for a reason. But yeah, it's quite brutal.
Really brutal.
Yeah.
So I do feel for them. But I think you're right, like seeing things around on LinkedIn, like and rallying support is great. And also on LinkedIn, celebrating winners.
Yeah. I feel like LinkedIn as a channel is becoming so much more about that, which is great. Like more of a community-based platform than it ever has been before. So there is a lot of support on there for every type of business or every industry. And I mean, I don't know if it's just because I've been using it a lot more and probably just late to the party, but
I'm with you too. We're both turning up late, fashionably late though, right?
There you go. My friend said to me the other day that I'm not late, I'm just a time optimist.
Oh God, that's my husband through.
Time optimist.
No, I'm late. I'm definitely late. I'm not even optimistic about it. We're going to be late. I just can feel it.
Exactly,
I know it.
Exactly. But yeah, so LinkedIn is just such a great platform, and it's becoming a lot more visual. There's a lot more moving content. There's a lot more people posting about their struggles as well. Like, so it's not squeaky clean. It's all real. Whereas I feel like Instagram can be a little bit, I know we're going for a tangent again, but I feel like Instagram can be still a little bit too polished.
I feel like Instagram can be too extremes. It can go from being super, super polished to like, oh my God, opening
someone
up.
Crying down.
Yes. rather than just like kind of just being realistic. See what you mean about LinkedIn, because that used to be a lot more like professional and you had to have your game face on, whereas now you can be a bit more sort of like real about what you're doing. I actually found a couple of months ago, and again, I think like you said, late to the party, but using it so much more, that I was scrolling that instead of Instagram.
Yeah, same.
And I was like, you know, getting lost in a world of LinkedIn and like really interesting articles and podcast links.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's great to find that kind of information there, and you know, we've started putting ours on there now, haven't we? And snippets and things, and it catches your attention, and then you learn something new, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
But there have to do a cheers to M&S.
Oh, M&S, you're killing it.
Absolutely killing it, aren't they?
And why do we think that is? I mean, I've got a few thoughts. Obviously, I spent some time working for them. And it was a really great time of my career. I learned so much from them as a brand, especially from own brand sourcing. They were just so good at teaching and developing people. But I've seen it change into a lot more of a brand landscape than it ever has been before. Whereas when I was there, it was through and through own brand. But now they've brought on so many more brands, especially in the clothing areas. I think it's a really interesting strategy. And just brings in a lot more of a different customer.
I think it brings in the customer, but I also think the design levels on their own brand stuff have stepped up a bit.
I agree.
And I think it maybe in part because they have the other brands there, which are maybe at a slightly higher price point, then they have their own brands. They look very, very achievable. You know, like a nice £35 price point for like a jumper and good quality.
Yeah.
And I think...
And good styling. Whereas before it might be a little bit frumpy and, you know, it might be a little bit less structured.
I totally agree. Yeah, like generally, if I went for I wouldn't pick a knit unless it was like limited collection.
Yeah.
Loved limited collection.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I was kind of steering away. So I think they've been really clever with moving their customer along.
Yeah.
The other part was like, maybe I've just got a bit older and now I am in that
I
bucket.
do think there is that element, 100%. We are. But I do think just watching them, they've definitely turned it around. And they've really changed their gear with their marketing strategy as well. You know,
they've made that a lot younger and a much more current. Oh my gosh, the Mark Wright and Spencer Matthews, like that is your kind of like
chalk and cheese.
But that's your 30-year-old, like I say 30s, maybe late 30s, but that's like your 30-year-old kind of customer, because we grew up with like Made in Chelsea and Towie, and now we're at an age, so you can see that it's like really clever marketing.
It's really
made me laugh so much seeing Mark and Spencer together, and like it was brilliant marketing, and actually it went viral, didn't it? Because then there were lots of other ones. I can't even think who they were. But so many other places did it, didn't they, with like their names, and I can't even think of a good one off the top of my head, but I remember it made me chortle for a few weeks. And like going down the Made in Chelsea route, like Binky's now like an ambassador as well, isn't she? And she's doing a range. So I definitely think they know their customer well. Yeah. Like, well, they've identified the customer they want and they've managed to reel them in, and we're all there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've always been so good at identifying their customer.
Yeah, so I think they've just identified like who they want their customer to be, and then they put the right people there in the marketing space, and they've just reeled us all in. And now everybody is like jumping on it. And Life of a Buyer even, doing all the out of stocks for M&S product. Oh yeah. And everyone I see, I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Oh yeah, that looks nice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bloody good marketing for them.
Yeah, it's great. So in terms of the future of retail then, we are seeing a lot of different platforms pop up these days, aren't we? So we talk a lot about, with our clients, we talk a lot about Create and Fair and sort of different ways for small businesses to purchase now. I think that's really interesting. It allows them to tap into other brands, whereas before everyone was kind of buying from the same people. Yeah. And, you know, I think that makes I mean, I love what Creo 8 have done. I think they're a really great brand. You know, they really tapped into a need, a struggle or a challenge that they obviously were facing with their own shop. So, you know, brilliant.
Turned it on its head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's really interesting that we'd started talking about what the future of retail's been, because we've been feeling it bubbling under the surfaces. Like, things are changing, like things can't be the same. Like, we know from working in big retailers that there is this constant challenge of like growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're seeing people start to fall away. And I think you're always going to need big retailers. There's always going to be those small players, but it's great to see so many smaller businesses having the space to be able to grow and emerge. And I thought it was really interesting because I found an article just the other day, actually. I think it was from the end of last year. But it was a Forbes article talking about the future of fashion. And it was called, I've got it noted actually, it was called The Future of Retail, Game-Changing Trends That Will Define 2025. And I was like, interesting. And do you know what? Almost like the first sentence resonated so much with what we've been talking about. It said, retail industry is on the cusp of the most dramatic transformation yet. And interestingly, we had a podcast guest that we spoke to just the other day. It's kind of an intro discussing what we might want to talk about for season 4. And they said that it was a new industrial revolution. Which I thought was really, I just really remembered them saying that, and I was like, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Like, the change is gonna come.
Yeah.
But the Forbes article had so many points in it that I think is worth us talking about and debating. Number one, they're talking about AI technology. I mean, I think the whole shift is coming because retail, the whole shift is coming because technology is advancing at like an insane
speed
rate now.
Yeah.
Like, so quickly. Like, I think we've spoken about it before. I find it a little bit terrifying, but I think that's probably what people felt when like TVs were coming out. Like,
on the internet.
Like, it's scary, like how quickly, and the new things that are coming out, and how personalised these things are getting as well. So they're talking about like the customer experience and how it's getting personal. So the first one was AI customer experience gets personal. And that is taking it beyond what we've seen before, where things are coming up and things like, you know, personalisation has always been big. I mean, even when we were working in our first retailer, you would have like charm necklaces with your initial on it.
Dr. PJ.
Yeah, exactly. Alphabet, like initial mugs have been around, coasters, like personalising everything, like your bag with your initials or with your full name. And I mean, not on the high street initially, was just all about, it was kind of set up
to be about personalisation, wasn't it?
And there's still a huge amount
of that on there.
And
Etsy as well jumped on that bandwagon.
And I don't think you can ever really quite get away from that, because even when you're like kids, like, oh my god, I used to love it when I used to go into like it was always in like tourist shops on holiday, and there'd be like a pen or like a bracelet with your name, that would never have mine because it always had KTIE.
Same.
My name
is not popular.
So frustrating. So I think there's always going to be an element of people wanting things to be like personalised to them, and having your name on it feels super, super personal. But it's this hyper personalisation that really throws me off. Like,
it's almost a contradiction in terms, though, isn't it? AI and personalisation, because actually it's not personal at all, because it's AI, because it's artificial. Like,
I see what you mean in terms of the wording.
It's not actually a genuine personal touch, is it?
No, but the way that they change the shopping experience is super personal, isn't it? Like, they're sort of saying it's going to be super, super unique. So they're going to do dynamic pricing. So it's going to be adapted to your individual budgets. So everything you see will be based on your budget. I don't like it because I feel like they know too much about me.
So are they tapping into your spending habits to ascertain your budget?
Yeah.
Wow.
And what would be kind of the average price point that you would be selling on certain things? Like, so
we'd always have moving price points then, I suppose.
well, I think they'll just be showing you, because at first that's what I thought. I was like,
wow.
So, well, that's not fair. So this jumper would be £10 for me because that's all that I spend, but it'd be £100 for you because you're a big spender. But we're getting the same garment. First I was like, that's not okay. So I was like, no. Think about this again. It's what
just showing you.
Yeah.
What you can afford.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And in some ways that's quite good, because people are always buying above their means, and a lot of situations of debt and all that kind of stuff is because of that. So, but then I suppose they probably pick up on that buying habit, wouldn't they?
Yeah, just to be showing you Mercedes and Mulberries and being like, well, they normally buy it, so buy more.
Champagne lifestyle.
Yeah, but I agree. On the one hand, it can be a really good thing, because it can be really frustrating, I find sometimes, when I get an ad on Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, that is lush. I love that. And I click on the ad and then I'm like, I do not have £280 to drop in a tea. Like, and it just frustrates me. And I've gone all the way through, and then their exit rate must be super high because they're getting all these people converting, clicking through, being like, that's lush, exit.
Yeah.
Targeting all the wrong people.
Yeah.
So in terms of like the spend that you're putting behind it, you're putting some money behind an ad that's being shown to a lot of people that it's completely irrelevant to. So on that hand, I quite like it. But on the other hand, as with everything AI, I find it really restrictive, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And it's putting people even more in a bubble. And not to go too off on a tangent on that, but if you put everybody just in one bubble and that's all they know, it's like the Truman Show or something like that. Do you know what I mean? You're just going around in circles. It's everything you know. You never see the outside world. You never see how somebody else lives. You don't have the aspirations to move up. You'd never buy anything more expensive because you're only ever showing £10 stuff.
Yeah.
So I would never reach that next level. I think there's two sides to it. But they're talking about like loyalty programs that like align with your values. And product recommendations, but as though they're from a friend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I found interesting, because I'm a bit like...
But you'll know they're not.
Yeah.
I think that's what I can't get my head around, is the authenticity of AI.
Yeah. How
is that going to translate? Because retail obviously has become a lot more consumer-based, over the last 100 years or whatever. It's not necessarily a task that now we do as a hobby. It's more of a, like, almost an addiction, I think, sometimes. Whereas before you would sort of spend your weekends perusing the shops and
just love a Saturday shopping experience.
A lot more lunch. Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of element's been taken away, and I think that with AI, that's going to dial that up even more.
And also doing this kind of AI thing and just showing you things and like products that it thinks you'll like. How much creativity is there in that? And it just goes back to exactly what we've talked about before, about how data and the use of data can be great, but also can just make everybody look the same.
Yeah.
So all I'm ever going to buy is a black t-shirt, because I bought 2 black t-shirts because they're a staple. And then that's all I ever get shown is black t-shirts.
Yeah.
Black t-shirt, black t-shirt, black t-shirt, black t-shirt. And we've said it before, a lot of the stores are looking the same. Like, we are starting to lose that kind of creativity.
More creativity as well. Like, in like actual talent, actual homegrown talent from designers. And so I think that AI is obviously here, and it's here for a lot of industries. It's interesting to see how it will develop in the retail industry, but there's got to be some level of like balance with it.
I'd agree, definitely agree. And I think it could definitely be used more in the sustainability bit. And I didn't really know quite how that could be used, but I heard something, and I think again the Forbes article does like signpost to it. But they're talking about making supply chains that bend not break, and actually using AI to foresee potential issues that may happen, whether that's like a weather issue and therefore what that may cause, like predicted typhoons, and therefore products aren't going to be able to dry in time, or rerouting ships because they can preempt that there's going to be a natural disaster, or
pirates in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and
shipping
using AI
channel.
for those kind of reasons and more process driven rather than getting involved in your personal.
In the creativity side of things.
Yeah,
for sure.
And on sustainability, again, another one we've talked about before, and we are big advocates for being a lot more kind of eco-friendly. But also, as we've spoken about before, like when you think about the cost of goods, the number of times that we've spoken to sort of suppliers being like, right, all of our eco credentials, so we need to make sure, you know, that at least 70% of the range is eco-friendly. And then the pricing comes in, and then it's just like, okay, we'll just go standard. Like, we've been there, and I know thousands of other people have too. So it's really interesting to see the article calling out supply chain transparency, and how the visibility of the sourcing and sustainability practices will be as visible as price tags, which is definitely the right place to go. It feels like customers want to know, but price still feels like it's going to be a barrier. And as we said at the beginning about the budget, people are going to be squeezed. Pricing's going to go up naturally because retailers are going to have to cover overheads.
So how do they cover that?
How do you balance it? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously down to the retailer to take the hit in their margin. And as we know, we've been in many a trade meeting, many a sign-off. That's just not an option. You're not growing your margin year on year. You're not doing the right thing. So does that conversation need to be had at the top? Like,
definitely.
How far can we keep pushing this?
The number of times we've tried
to other impacts
push this agenda
and sort of agendas now on the table, you know? So it's almost like, should sustainability have its own pot, like marketing does, like overheads do, like, you know, it should be part of a company's spending budget to help us, because you genuinely can't have it all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just not the way. But it's the right way to go. And if it's going to cost a little bit more, it's the right thing to do in the long run. But I do feel like, I don't know, quite a lot of people at the top maybe are like, well, I'm not going to be here then. No, this is a really morbid thing to say.
No, but
I'm not going to be here in 30 years, so what does it matter if the world burns and dies?
But I do think that massive generalisation here, just putting that out there, but I do think there is a lot of companies out there at the moment where the people at the top have been in the industry for a long time, and they are just at the end of their careers. So almost dangerous in those positions, because retail is so tough. Everyone's having to pivot so much more than they ever have done in their careers. They genuinely don't really know how to do it. And with all these other impacts coming in, I think you're right. I think some people are making the wrong decisions. I
think some of them just want their payouts and to be done.
Exactly.
They're like, I've got 2 years left. I just want to get my money, get my big bonus,
and get at it, and
get out of here.
My Caribbean cruise around the world for the rest of the year.
Just go and retire.
Again, we are massively generalising. There are some amazing leaders out there that have been in the industry for a long time and do really care about it and do feel passionate about it. But there are some people that have made some disastrous decisions, and we've seen that. You know, everybody,
and we've seen it firsthand in businesses that we've been in as well. So it's really interesting to see like how it's been called out in journalism that sustainability is a core business value and it's a core business driver, and it's not just a nice to have anymore. And 2025 is the year, but actually it's almost like that's all well in theory, but actually in practice, or are we just going to see a lot more greenwashing?
Is greenwashing going to become an easier way to hide things? Is it kind of right now? Greenwashing is still a fairly new term, I'd say.
Is it just going to become an industry standard practice?
Exactly.
Because sustainability is at the heart of everything that we do. But just don't tell everybody about not bit. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is obviously there is a lot more legislation on plastic tax, and lots of there's lots of penalties for not being sustainable now, I think, which is great. And again, but then it needs to come into company budgets. It has to come in at some point on your P&L. Like, you can't walk away from it anymore. I mean, we've seen so much expense put onto our products for that over the last few years. And when they suddenly change the legislation overnight as well, and you're sort of scrambling around trying to find sometimes sort of near on £500,000.
Yeah, and some of these things do need to be eased in. It's all well and good saying like the visibility of sourcing and scalability has to be as visible on your price tags. But if that means a whole overhaul of labelling, a lot of people buy their labels and tickets and things like that upfront in bulk to save money. And therefore, to suddenly bring that in is a huge amount of wastage because none of those labels can be used anymore. And that is a huge write-off. So it's the balance between making sure that we are future ready.
Migrating over to that,
Yeah, but without actually just causing a whole lot of landfill and problems behind us.
Yeah, exactly.
But talking about landfill, the other thing that we are big fans of is all the kind of pre-loved.
The emergence of that is insane, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah. And they're talking about, Vinted. We talked about before how much we love Vinted, but it's now really being seen as a retail powerhouse.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
For sure. And, obviously Zara started leaning into that as well, and they've got their own pre-loved stuff on their site, which I've looked at so many times, thought about doing that, 'cause like 3/4 of my wardrobe is Zara.
Can't get away from it.
Yeah, and also again back to like they've had some real classic products. Like Topshop's obviously really, really, really popular on Vinted back in the day when it was like really, really, really innovative design
and good quality.
So it's like, why shouldn't we be recycling all that kind of stuff?
Definitely.
Like, I can't advocate enough for a lot more businesses to do a pre-love section on the website. Again, I completely understand there's so much cost involved in doing pre-love. Like, you don't really make a lot of money. You don't. But,
it's making a statement. And I think the fact that people like Zara and Levi and other big players are doing it and have made it much more of a kind of, it's very front and centre. Once you've got big players doing it and it's gone mainstream, others have got to follow.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way to go. And I think pre-loved is no more seen as like bargain hunters. We talked about that before as well, like charity shops. It's not like can't afford anything, so I'm just going to wear something second hand.
I love a charity shop. Over the last few years, I have like
Vintage.
Brilliant.
Vintage is now not just something that was yonder year, like 1920s vintage things. Vintage is literally just like 5 years ago and it's vintage. It's cool. Vintage is cool. Vintage has always been cool, but the timeline in which you would describe a product as vintage has shifted.
Yeah, definitely. Loving that movement, and it's really, again, very exciting to see where that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. And then the final thing on technology, and it's one that we have been trying to get our heads around. So if anybody actually knows more about this, then please drop us a message. We are picking everybody's brains. But social shopping.
So like TikTok. Yes.
So we have been struggling with this for a couple of months now, trying to get our head around TikTok. Like, I've been on TikTok, I lose my life to it. You're like, I'm just going to have a quick look. 20 minutes later, you're like, whoa.
Down a rabbit hole.
It moves so quickly, and then you're just all over the place. It just baffles me. But we heard a top drawer about like 12-hour live.
Yeah.
Like, how could anyone keep going for 12 hours? I'll never know.
It's almost like QVC model on social media, isn't it? Yeah.
Stepped up again. And just recently, didn't Davina McCall do something with, God, who was it? Can't even remember the brand. Isn't that awful? But Davina McCall did a live.
Head and Shoulders?
No, I think it might have been, I feel like it was Garnier or something like that.
Oh,
so
really?
Something in that kind of like, yeah.
Maybe Head and Shoulders was a long time ago, Lindsay. Get with the program.
But something like that. So and that made waves. Like, that was just like, wow. And it wasn't as long, but that's really interesting. And the stat on the, again, Forbes article, which I just found absolutely, I'm going to put the link to it actually on the bottom of this, because I found it a really interesting read. And I guess it's no surprise, but Gen Z shoppers apparently more likely to trust a live streamer product review than a traditional advert.
Really?
And I guess it's because they're used to the platform.
They're used to that way of thinking,
being communicated to.
Yeah.
It feels like you know the person because they're doing all the behind the scenes. You got to know them. Like, it feels like genuine people. One thing that flagged in my mind, and maybe it's because I'm a mum and I've become so much more risk averse, but what about like safeguarding or like industry standards? Because obviously the advertising industry, there are so many restrictions about what you can show and when you can show it.
Yeah, and you've seen so many major brands had their adverts banned for so much diversity that they've kind of exploited, haven't they?
Yeah. So what rules are there around
TikTok selling? That's really interesting.
Because I feel like TikTok doesn't really have
a barrier. Yeah. Maybe they do. We'll find out.
But I think that's really interesting, and actually probably just brings us to the end of that, because I feel like we have talked and talked and talked and talked.
But it's really,
but it's such
some
a
really
fascinating
big
subject.
topics. I think there's so much we could talk about and retouch upon again on the future of retail. And obviously we'll be talking about with a lot of our podcast guests this season, their views on it. You know, retail is going through a massive transformation to keep up with all the things that's been thrown at it, and it has to pivot. It just has to. So this year, I think, you know, it'd be interesting to hear what our reflections are at the end of this year.
Yeah, definitely.
This year, I think, is going to be a year of massive change, and
for everyone,
which is, and no one should be afraid of that, though. I think let's go with it, embrace it. Let's try and learn. Everybody needs to sort of chill out and understand that nobody knows how to do this, so we all need to work together and collaboratively to get through it and support one another. Like this is going to be the time now where everybody needs to get behind each other and no more sort of pitching against each other and trying to outdo each other. It's all about collaboration.
Hundy P.
I haven't used that for a while.
And with that brings us to an end. So yeah, tune in next week.
See you next week. Bye.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review. And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.